Welcome back to day 10 of our Southwest road trip, and today we're heading to the Superstition Mountains right outside of Phoenix, Arizona. This marks the final stretch of the trip, as the Superstitions were the last completely new spot for me and the last spot in general outside of my home state of California. This will be a bit of a shorter video since we only experienced a handful of different hikes and attractions in the area, but I still hope to give justice to this amazing place. As stated, the Superstition Mountains are in a prime location just east of Phoenix, and it's for that reason that it's almost hard to believe it's so beautiful. From the time I've spent in Arizona, the north part of the state is loaded with outstanding natural advantages, while the south part, while it does contain some, is a lot more desolate. The Superstition Range has a maximum elevation of 6,266 feet, and these peaks have some truly fascinating shapes to them as they're made up of these unorthodox rocky spires and pinnacles. That, combined with their impressive flora at their foothills, make this an unmistakably gorgeous desert area. The mountains are in the federally designated Superstition Wilderness Area, which contains more than 159,000 acres. This means its governing body is the U.S. Forest Service, which actually makes sense, given the fact that the Superstitions are also simultaneously located in the Tonto National Forest. You might think this is weird because the region doesn't look forest-like at all from my video footage, but there's some striking diversity in the forest boundaries that I hope to check out on a future visit. We're going to begin at Dutchman State Park, situated on the west side of the Superstition Mountains. You'd think since this is the start of the range that it might take some time for the elevations to soar into the sky, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The 320-acre state park contains many hiking trails, but the one you absolutely have to check out is the Treasure Loop, which is 2.3 miles with 534 feet of elevation gain. In my opinion, it's the best bang for your buck while visiting, as it encapsulates all of what makes this area spectacular with not too much effort overall. We had a pretty bad glare when we got there, as we actually arrived in the afternoon due to some car troubles, but you could still tell it was going to be a wonderful hike between all the large cacti and towering rock formations out in the distance. The latter is basically the centerpiece of this hike, and you'll come right up against its foothills before looping back towards the parking lot. The experience took a turn for the best once the mountains began covering the sun, and from there on out, my jaw was on the floor. What you're looking at is a plateau of sorts that eventually leads to the Flatiron, one of the highest points in the Superstitions. It reaches a height of more than 4,800 feet, and there's actually a summit trail that begins in Dutchman State Park, but it's very strenuous and not something we had interest in doing this trip. Facing the valley, you see the easternmost sections of the Phoenix metro area, which contains some interesting non-hiking related activities that I'll touch on a bit later. First, the Treasure Loop exceeded our expectations so much that we decided to come back for sunset, as the $10 admission price works for the entire day. This was an awesome decision, as the park contains the rare cholla cacti, which are smaller cactus plants that appear to glow when the sun rises and falls. We'll talk more about them in the next video from Joshua Tree National Park, as they're quite well known for that plant. Additionally, you have an abundant concentration of saguaro cacti, the tallest species of cactus in North America, which brought us back to our time at Saguaro National Park at the beginning of our trip. I'd actually say these were more picturesque though, perhaps because they were less common, which forces you to appreciate them anytime you see one. The cholla and saguaros create an impeccable foreground to Flatiron and its corresponding rock formations. How can you really top a scene like this? Now, to split up our two visits to Dutchman, we actually went to a ghost town, which my buddy Evan had heard great things about. It was founded in 1893 after gold was discovered in the area, but declined after the mine veins faulted. It was later purchased by a private investor who set out to preserve the town, essentially transforming it into a tourist attraction. What's great about the Goldfield ghost town is it's free parking and free admission, meaning you can just waltz on in. Granted, most attractions within the ghost town are an upcharge, and rightfully so. You can partake in a mine tour, you can go take a train that circles the perimeter of the property, you can eat to your heart's content. There's so much to do here. We just scratched the surface and vouched to take a walk around the ghost town and watch a shootout, which takes place approximately every hour during the weekend. The Goldfield Gunfighters are a dedicated group of volunteer men and women who take pride in bringing the spirit and history of the Old West to life. I find it unbelievably cool that you can see this live show compliments of the owners. It really made this place well worth visiting. While not the kind of thing I'd usually highlight on Travel Dash, as a matter of fact, it's more akin to something I might vlog on Coaster Dash, my theme park channel, I thought it was a great stop. The next morning, it was time for our most anticipated spot in the Superstition Mountains, which is the Peralta Trail to Weaver's Needle. This can be accessed by a 7-mile dirt road, which isn't all too bad until you reach the end and it starts to get really rough. Still, I think just about any vehicle could make it. You've also got to keep in mind this is one of the most popular hikes in Arizona. It's also worth noting that there are plans in place to pave the road sometime in late 2025, which frankly I think is overdue considering the popularity of this spot. We were fortunate to find parking very easily and set out on the 5.4-mile round-trip hike with 1,463 feet of elevation gain. Most people go all the way to Fremont Saddle, which cuts about a mile off your hike, but I would strongly recommend continuing to Lone Tree, which is what we did. This section of the trail is mostly flat and by far the easiest portion, so it's well worth doing to get the best possible view of Weaver's Needle. Alright, let's backtrack a little. Almost all of this hike had you make your way out of a valley up into these mountains. While there's very little scenery change, the scenery that is prevalent is awesome, with spectacular distant views of the landscape and close-up perspectives of endless little rock formations. Few desert locations I've visited look like this. I was sort of enamored the whole time. The elevation gain is definitely a butt kicker, but I always look at these hikes with the lens that you're going to get the difficult stuff out of the way first, so that the way back is a breeze. The reveal upon reaching Fremont Saddle is amazing, revealing arguably the most iconic peak in the Superstitions, Weaver's Needle. At 4,553 feet high, it shouldn't come as a surprise why this is such a prominent landmark in the region. This has to be one of the most striking and unique mountains I've ever seen. You have the rock formations of the journey out covering all of its foothills before it spikes up at the top. The only downside with this view is it isn't particularly close to the mountain, so as previously stated, I'd strongly recommend you continue to Lone Tree. The tree itself is cool in that it's as described, the lone pine tree in the immediate area, but mainly it serves as a marker to this unbelievable overlook of Weaver's Needle, which supposedly is the best you can get from anywhere in the wilderness area. Though I wouldn't be surprised if one of the corresponding summit views challenged this, I felt more than satisfied making this our turnaround point, as it was for sure my favorite viewpoint in all of the Superstition Mountains. An all-around great conclusion to honestly one of my favorite places we visited on the entire trip. Despite our relatively short visit to the area, I had a great time in the Superstition Mountains, and I thought the experience at the ghost town really rounded things out well.
I thought the Superstition Mountains were such an underrated spot. The Lost Dutchman took me by surprise about how amazing that place was. The trail that we did there was just amazing, and that rock formation is just so cool. And the Peralta trail was also really cool as well too, to go see that big giant Weaver's Needle. That was so amazing. And so yeah, the Superstitions really blew me away about how cool it was.
Alright, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Travel Dash for more content like this in the future. Stay tuned for the last episode in our series throughout the Southwest, and I'll see you all then. Peace out, everyone.